This is the Big 3 News lead story of the day.
You know, like you said, it's a money grab for these lawyers, and they don't go by regular laws since they're not deemed, you know, they're in like a special proceedings, and you cannot go after them in a certain manner. You know, they supersede all sorts of regular laws by these, you know, setting up these authorities and that type of thing when dealing with elders. And you know, I had a case with my mother, which was nowhere as bad as what's going on here. My mother lived to be 83, 84 years old, and living in a two-family. She lives upstairs, and you know, the last 3 or 4 or 5 years of her life, she was pretty much confined to oxygen, and she was blind and legally blind, I should say. And you know, she just did her daily thing. My wife would pour her pills and do all sorts of things to help her out. But we had a neighbor, a couple elderly people, Ralph and Dot, and he was a retired cop, and she, you know, she did secretarial work. Long story short was she passed away, and he was there by himself, and it got to the point where he really couldn't take care of himself. So I used to go over and shovel his walk and do different things like that. But then they had the senior citizens in Boston come in, and they had a caretaker guy come in. He started living with the old timer there, and the guy was just what he did is he held this guy hostage in his own home. He didn't allow him to do much of anything he liked to do, and you know, and he didn't want like myself or my wife checking in on him and what was going on. This guy was rifling the guy's bank account. All this stuff was going on, and you know, prior to him coming over there, you know, he used to be home alone, and I picked him. I had a key to the house. I picked him up off the floor a couple times, so he did need attention. But this guy that they sent through senior services in Boston, this guy was absolutely brutal. And what happened was, I got in there one day to say hi to him, and he was crying in the chair. Long story short, you know, we got a hold of one of his relatives who came in, but what he in turn did when he found out that, you know, he had been, you know, got kicked out of there, he in turn called and said that we were abusing my mother, which started a whole chain reaction on my end. So he just like tried to get me in trouble. But it's terrible what happens to seniors, and in some cases, you know, it's not even seniors. It's just people that have some medical or mental issues, and then you know, and like they said, like your caller said, they just took all the money from the estate. You know, and that's one of the reasons we more or less, you know, we had my mother here with a living will. We got a good lawyer. He told us what to do, like, and thank God we didn't run into these problems.
Well, and I have noticed on recent trips to the hospital, they're asking you now, do you have a living will? Do you have a medical directive? So it's at least prompting people to kind of think about these issues a little more. But I can't imagine what it would be like to be accused of something, and you know that you're not doing it or you didn't do it. I mean, people are going through this in guardianship cases. I'm sure parents have gone through this with you know, children and custody issues and things. So that's just got to be a horrible feeling, though, to be portrayed or characterized as doing something or mistreating somebody when you know you've got their best interest at heart. I know there's got to be people out there, and there are people out there who do take advantage of people within your own family. But you know, to make it up and fabricate it or misrepresent someone, that's got to be devastating.
Yeah, I don't get mad too often, but I was really upset when that happened, and you know, a lot of things went through my mind what I was gonna do to this guy, but you know, I did not do it. But he ended up getting his own. He was, I don't think he was arrested, but he was kicked out of his service, so he could no longer do that. You know, he was actually physically threatening and verbally threatening this guy. He had him so scared that you know, he was shaken, and you know, he wouldn't take physically care of him. You know, he was leaving him in his, you know, wet clothes. And my wife found the guy next door, the old timer. He had a brother who he didn't really talk to, so he was like, really, he had nothing to do with that side of the family. But she tracked down this guy's brother's son and got a hold of him. And this guy got over here in the nick of time because this guy had the old timer Ralph pretty much signed the house over to him. And that's totally illegal. You're not supposed to be able to do anything like that. But this guy had pretty much had his car, and he was getting the house from him. I don't know what would have become of Ralph, but that's just as far as it got. He, if like the nephew didn't get involved, the house would have been this guy's.
Wow. Well, it's sad, and people possibly think, well, it couldn't happen to me, or this is about elderly people, but it's really not. I mean, even the GAO report classified seniors as 50 and older, and like you said, there could be people of any age that have medical conditions that incapacitate them, and you may find yourself in this condition. I mean, even with Gary, this was an accident. He fell downstairs and hit his head, it sounds like. So it could happen at any time.
So I'm technically a senior, is that what you're trying to tell me now?
Well, if you are 50, according to the government, you do qualify as a senior. I don't know that you qualify for benefits yet, though.
No. I guess
we're gonna have to work until we die anyway. We're not going to retire standing stones. What are you talking about?
I know. Well,
And my wife had power of attorney and also guardianship. The court removed my wife as guardian and replaced my daughter, who has been in 56 mental institutions, as the guardian. They have gone through about $1 million in the last 3 years, just totally wasted, of 80 years of creativity and life savings of my mother-in-law and my deceased father-in-law. It's just absolutely criminal.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, you want to address that?
Let me guess. The sister who's the guardian didn't get it. The attorneys got it, right?
The attorneys got it. However, there were some checks that were cashed by my daughter, and these were annuity checks.
The vast amount of the money the attorneys got, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
The attorneys and also care providers. These were companies that were employed by the court to oversee the care. There was a nursing home that we had originally planned on placing my mother-in-law in that was about $6,500 per month, all inclusive. And the court removed her from any possibility of that and placed her into a facility that charged $15,000 a year. The attorneys also that were representing my daughter, who was in the mental institutions, had an interest in nursing homes, and there was a major scandal in Cook County with the family that ran this particular nursing home.
Right. You see that a lot. Everybody's got an interest in the facility. Now, interesting enough, in the state of Pennsylvania, they will not allow a ward to be the guardian of a institution who's providing residential care because of the financial incentive. I don't know what the law in Illinois is, but it makes very good sense that those who have residential custody of the ward should not have guardianship because of the financial incentive involved.
Exactly.
It's all about money, guys. It really is. I mean, you want to kill somebody who's even breathing and steal their money, put them under guardianship.
Unfortunately, that's true.
Yeah, it is, because as a ward, you're dead in law. You have no legal capacity to complain. So you're essentially dead as a matter of law, even though you're standing there breathing. You don't have any personage in law. You're non sui juris. And so you can complain till you're blue in the face. Nobody has to listen to you.
We formed an organization.
Go ahead, sir.
Ken, what are you doing there in your area to to deal with these issues, to address them? How are you responding to them?
We formed an organization called probatesharks.com. And we work closely with the NASGO organization. And we put watchers into the courts. Unfortunately, there's so much carnage going on in the Cook County court system. I mean, it's completely corrupt.
Yeah.
I don't believe that we've seen a judge who is honest in the Cook County court, the probate system.
It's been corrupt for years, not just in guardianship litigation, but Cook County's got a dirty history. Period.
It's unbelievable. It's known as a criminal activity.
Really is.
The Greylord.
Yeah, Greylord was the U.S. Attorney's undercover investigation that got 8 or 9 judges up there.
Yeah, they put quite a few of them away. That was in the 80s, and I think we are ready for another Greylord type operation.
Yeah.
You really don't even have to do much investigating. Really, all that the investigators have to do is sit in the courtrooms and watch what goes on.
They're pretty bold about it. Yeah. I've seen some of these judges. They'll sign an order they don't even read. They just hold their hand out and say, "Give me an order," and they'll sign it. I've often said somebody ought to slip an order in that puts a lien on all their own property, and then they've signed away all their own property. Maybe even sign themselves into a psych hospital. That'd be pretty funny, Hey, give me an order, I'll sign it. Let them sign something they don't read, and then sweep them off to a psych hospital, put them under guardianship, and go, "Hey, look here, we got a court order, it's been signed,"
Hey, Ken, Tim, let me ask you, is there any way to get any of this activity captured, on video, on film? I mean, what if people were able to somehow get more of this out into the public? That seems to help, cases.
You know something, Rusty? Go to www.impeachrandyKennedy.com, and that's a case out of Tennessee about a musician and he's got audio and video of the court proceedings that placed him under guardianship. He was not even in the room when his brother took conservatorship of him. They admit that the only reason they're doing this is they want access to his Vanguard investment account that held a substantial amount of money. And you can watch it, you can see it, you can read it. It's all on video right there before your eyes.
Okay, I'll check that out.
Pretty astounding.
Anybody who's interested that needs help, they could contact our website, www.probatesharks.com, and we have a phone line. We also have email, so they can contact us, and we'll try to help them out.
Ken, it's Ken, right, up in Illinois, Ken?
It is Ken, yes.
I've heard of your organization, and I've read some things on it, but, I'm a one-man band, and I haven't had an opportunity to really visit what you're doing. I love you guys for what you're doing, and someday we'll all get together and see what we can put together, but at present I'm buried in Sara's case and a couple other cases. But keep it up, Ken. If there's anything I can do for you, the girls at NASGA know me.
Well, appreciate it. We look forward. We'll probably have some type of national meeting pretty soon.
I was going to say, you guys really need to get together somehow on a national level, because for me as an outsider just observing this and now reporting on it, that seems to be the most frustrating part, is that you've got all these different pockets of people out across the country who are trying to make a difference and trying to protect people's dignity and stand up for their rights, but yet you're all disjointed.
I don't know, Rusty, and maybe Ken can answer this. Ken, do you have any paralegals or attorneys in your organization?
We have some professionals in the organization that are very cognizant of the law and also medical procedures. So we're very, very lucky to have that. We also have some retired attorneys that give us some assistance. An attorney does not have a chance. I mean, they make their livings in the court system, and if they go against the court system,
they won't go in and do battle with these guys.
No, we've got some attorneys that are within a couple years of retiring. There's also attorneys that are in other states that can practice in Illinois. So it doesn't matter. These guys are not behooving to the court.
It's kind of career suicide for a local attorney to go in and try and stop this stuff.
It certainly is, and it's very, very unfortunate. It's the guardian ad litem that was involved in my wife's case is absolutely incredible. She has broken every law in the book, and the judge is just as corrupt, allows her to get away with this, and it's a very unfortunate situation. Until
that Adam became a judge, what a deal that was,
Oh yeah.
Let me ask both of you, Tim and Ken and Sara. I think you're still with us. Let me ask you guys just a general question here. For somebody that would want to help you somehow, that doesn't necessarily have a stake in a particular story itself, but just somebody like me or others in the room, what could somebody do to help you?
Wow, that's a good question, Rusty.
I mean, there's a lot of generous people who pay attention to these types of stories. There's people that want to do things, but we don't always know what can we do.
Rusty, there's a group of us that are kicking around the idea, because I am a 23-year paralegal and I have some proven theory on this, that we're going to form a legal advocacy organization. Now, I say legal advocacy because cause advocacy is one thing and legal advocacy is another. And we'd like to enter into the courtroom with a sound legal theory that's proven to work and attack these cases for what they truly are, and that's fraud. That's called extrinsic fraud. It voids all the court proceedings. None of this has any authority in law whatsoever. It looks like it's color of law, but it's truly color of office. These are de facto court proceedings. These judges have no immunity whatsoever. This thing is fraught with Americans with Disabilities violations and a lot of crime and criminality. And I would really like to have a support network to put together this legal advocacy organization that we could set up some war rooms and go do battle with these folks. It really, it's not that tough, Rusty. It's not that tough. And I'll send you some information to support that statement. There's a particular legal theory. It works. It's proven to work, and it'll work time and time again. But I'm only one man. I'm only one guy, and there's thousands of victims, and everybody's screaming and hollering.
Exactly. I mean, there's 24 hours in a day. You're limited with resources, and there's,
there's
hundreds of cases like this.
Paperwork. My goodness, I came into Sarah's case, and the boxes and boxes of paperwork, and it's one thing for a victim to tell you their story and go, gosh, I told you that. I need the document that proves it.
Right.
When I see the document that proves it, we can win the case.
Go ahead, Ken.
Okay.
One thing that is helpful is constantly continuing to blog in the various newspapers. One of the local papers in Chicago, the Tribune, is having some serious problems with bankruptcy procedures in the federal court, and in some ways, a lot of the corruption rubs off in the federal court in the area of Cook County. And they went to the extent of preventing me from blogging on any of their commentaries. And at first I thought it was just possibly my email address, so I changed my email address. These people went to the extent of blocking my IP address with my Comcast account. The Chicago Times is more liberal with this. They allow me to blog in their blogs, and they're not in bankruptcy procedure. They're doing quite well. And but it's incredible that these courts have the power to abridge my First Amendment right of freedom of speech. It's incredible.
And maybe that's the key. Like I say, we're gonna put an article on our website, and what I want to do is I want to explore the findings of this GAO report, but at the same time I want to bring it down on a personal level. So I'm going to use Sara's story, and I've also got a couple other individuals who we've interviewed on previous shows that I'd like to I'd like to kind of put those in to have like three examples of here's how it's impacting people's lives, and maybe from there you can circulate the story a little more and get some more traction on it.
That would be fantastic, Rusty. Rusty, I'll get off the line and let some of the other folks that want to comment. I'm sure there's many, many more. So
all right.
It's been great talking to you folks. Please keep up the good work. Keep the word going, and we'll eventually win. I know we will. Take care. Thank you very much.
Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
Care.
Appreciate
Bye-bye.
the call.
Sure. My pleasure. Bye-bye.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was Ken from Illinois. We've heard from New York tonight. We've heard of cases in Ohio, Florida. You know, they're all over the country. This GAO report found about 45. We'll go ahead and open up the phone lines right now. It's 9:51. We've got Sara Harvey joining us tonight, and Tim Lehrman discussing the case of her husband, Gary Harvey. He suffered an accident back in January of 2006. He fell down his basement steps and had some cognitive disabilities, and he's been under the care now of Chemung County in New York as a ward of the county. Essentially, his wife's rights and her access to him has been restricted, denied, and they've become the guardians of her husband, and she's fighting for his care, trying to rehabilitate him and get him back, hopefully home is the goal. So we'll go ahead and open up the Skype lines right now for just a few minutes. If nobody calls in, then we'll wrap up this interview. But again, Sara, I really do appreciate your time tonight. I know this has to be difficult to talk about and to open up like this to the public, but I think you're doing a courageous thing by letting people know about the abuses that are in the system.
Well, Rusty, this isn't just about seniors. It's about young and old, or the young. I mean, we've got kids in these types of situations.
And we are adding we're adding one call here to the Skype line with Sara. Hello, you're on the air live with Rusty Ray and Sara. Who's calling, please?
Hi, this is Lori in Boston.
Hi, Lori. Can you mute the audio in the background, please?
Yeah, shut the.
We're getting a little feedback.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I had a guardianship case in New York City, and I was a court stenographer, paralegal, and I never knew how sick the system was until I got involved in it. And the problem, I'm a member of NASCA.
Okay.
The problem is escalating all across the country. We wrote a 50-page report to Congress. I pumped in the URL onto your chat.
Okay.
An open letter to Congress.info, and there we put all the things we observed. The next report we're writing to Congress will tell our recommendations, because for years and years the Senate Aging Committee has been holding hearings. All they do is talk. Nothing happens. Every professional organization that attends these meetings has much to say, and the key is lack of monitoring and oversight, and that's what NASCA is trying to work out to present to Congress. We wrote to them specifically seeking federal intervention, because you can't deal with 50 states with 50 different laws.
Yeah, there needs to be. It seems like there needs to be at least some uniformity on how laws are applied and even how people can become guardians.
The system on our website, it begins with a good law gone bad. It was a law, it's an important law, it's a necessary law, but it's being used and abused by the professions in what we now call a fiduciary feeding frenzy. Sara's case is a little bit different in the respect that there's physical and mental abuse there. Most of our cases involve money.
And that is true according to the GAO report. They looked at about 20 cases over the past 20 years, and they found 158 victims at $5.4 million in assets that were stolen by these guardians. So as you say, it is primarily a fiduciary issue, but in Sara's case, it's more than that. It's about physical and mental health, isn't it?
Right, but what the GAO reported is not even the tip of the iceberg, because the Senate Aging Committee instructed them to do a forensic examination, but only on closed cases.
That's correct.
Those people in D.C., hey, dead victims can't speak.
And the thing, Lori, that amazed me and Sarah is that according to that report, there's no single source, there's no single website or single resource where these types of allegations can even be reported. It's just random, and across the United States, you got to go to different courts, you got to go to different government agencies and try to compile it. But how can you respond to a problem when there's no way to even collect the data to begin with in a central location?
That's why the federal government must intervene. There's federal money involved, too.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of these people, these guardians, receive benefits from the federal government for these wards, don't they?
No, they pick up their Social Security, their retirement benefits, pension benefits, and VA funding.
Exactly.
That's what's involved here. And they'll take your insurance. But what they did to Gary and Sarah, I consider that criminal.
Well, Lori, we appreciate the call, and we're glad to have you here tonight. And Sarah, do you want to respond to that?
Rusty, can I interject here a second?
Yes, go
in
ahead.
2006, the American Bar Association, Erica F. Woods, submitted a report. There was an exploratory study of all 50 states and the nature of their guardianship proceedings, and many states consider a guardianship. Just a second here. They only look at the adversarial portion of the guardianship case as being a case, meaning that once the appointment of the guardian is made, the state court administrative offices do not compile any information on these cases, and they leave the ongoing administration of the case to the local authorities. So, for example, in the state of Indiana, where I'm from, there's 92 cases, or 92 counties, and therefore there's 92 different administrative practices.
Well, what's your name?
And there's no compilation of what every one of those counties is doing. There's only an accounting of the number of cases filed, the number of appointments made. And after that point, nobody cares, nobody's keeping track of how these cases proceed through the courts.
And there's
an
no
interesting
cross-referencing
nuance
either, is there?
Rusty, that they become, it's a ministerial administration as opposed to what we generally believe to be a court proceeding. Okay?
Okay.
It's not really a judicial proceeding. Once the appointment is made, the judicial proceeding is over, and the ministerial administration begins. And there's no oversight in that. Absolutely none. That's what makes it a free-for-all for the lawyers. You know, in common law, Old English common law, the probate court was the court of creditors. All they're interested in doing is paying somebody some money. And so that it makes it very easy for them to just dispose of estates by just, you got a bill, submit it, we'll pay it. You got a bill, submit it, we'll pay it. You want to stop this stuff, then the county, you know, these are unilateral contracts. The county comes along and says, we're going to impose a contract upon you, and your estate's going to pay for it whether you like it or not. And if you want to stop this abuse, make the county pay the bill. They want to put you under guardianship. Let them pay the friggin' lawyers.
Right.
Let them pay the forensic accountants. Let them pay the doctors that want to bleed the friggin' system, as opposed to imposing it all on the estate of the ward.
Taking the assets of the ward.
Right. Right now, there's a free-for-all against the assets of the ward. So the more money you've got, the more likely you're going to end up in this equation. Because everybody's in line to get paid. And that's the only thing the court knows is that, hey, it's a probate court, we're here to pay bills. You got a bill? Bring it in, we'll pay it. It's a state administration. It's not a court, an adversarial court proceeding as we understand our courts to be.
Right.
So there's a misnomer here. Not really a court proceeding. It's an administrative proceeding.
Okay, well, let's go
a
ahead
lot
and
of people
see.
don't understand that, Rusty.
Okay, all right, appreciate
And,
the
here's
clarification.
another one in the course of the legal matters of this, Rusty, real quick, and I'll get off this soapbox.
No, you're doing fine.
Once the appointment is made, every other court activity after that is an interlocutory proceeding, which is not appealable. You have no right to appeal anything that they're doing until the estate is closed. Then you can appeal it. But as long as the estate is open, you cannot appeal anything that they're doing.
So
This is
it's just
open door to a
closed
lot
to
of
you. You can't respond in any way.
No, you don't get a choice. You don't get a choice. They're going to pay the bill, and if you survive 20 years, your appeal right will arise 20 years from now. And if you remember it 20 years down the road, you can appeal it. If you don't, so be it. You know, it's really fraught with fraud, Rusty. Really fraught, really bad. So I'm going to let the phone lines open up again.
Okay, I appreciate it, Tim. Thank you.
Thank you, Rusty.
All right, if you have another a call here or a question for Sarah or a comment that you'd like to make, the Skype line is open. Sarah's on the line with us here. We'll go ahead and take a couple more calls if they're out there. If not, we'll wrap up this portion of the broadcast tonight. But we'll give folks just a few more seconds. You know, the GAO report, though, I was amazed that they were able to, they actually created some fictitious identities and they became registered in some states as guardians themselves with questionable backgrounds. So let's go ahead and add.
Nobody's the guardians, Rusty.
Hello, you're on the air live with Rusty Ray and Sarah and Tim. Who's calling, please?
Hi, my name's Holly.
Hi, Holly. Welcome to Big 3 News.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Hey, I just wanted to let everybody know that I actually met Sara through NASCA, National Association to Stop Guardianship Abuse. I learned of her story there, and I thought just what a terrible thing it was for that to happen. And so I actually contacted Rita Gould from the Department of Social Services. I wanted to try to help Sara get to visit her husband. And so I volunteered, although I live several hours away. I had the time, and I thought, well, I'm going to drive up there and be her guard so that she can go, and her husband doesn't have to pay for that. So Rita had me drive up there for an interview. She wouldn't interview me over the phone, so I made a trip up there, having never met Sara before, and I went in, and they asked me several questions. I also have a guardianship nightmare. My mother's been kidnapped from the state of Pennsylvania, being held criminally confined in Florida, and so I've got, some information on the internet as well. And after I got up there, then she said, well, we can't let you guard Sara Harvey because you also have a guardianship story, a problem. I have a no-contact order, which is one of their favorite things to do. There's a no-contact order between myself and my mother, so they would not let me sit with Sara as a guard. And then most recently, in the last several weeks, I contacted Rita Gould again just to be a visit. I just wanted to visit. And she refuses to even acknowledge my correspondence with her. I corresponded several times, and she does not respond back at all. So
it's almost because you're affiliated now with this movement, and you've got an open case as well, that you get labeled, someone who can't participate in the process.
Exactly. Yeah.
And well, it's really not only that, Rusty. It's like Amanda Longtime at the hospital. There was a couple of people that come down, actually Tim and Holly, to visit Gary, and she stepped in and intervened and said that you cannot visit because she was enforcing the law.
Yeah.
Oh,
she was going to tell Tim what the law was of guardianship. That didn't go over real well.
She was enforcing because of HIPAA.
Right.
There's nothing in HIPAA that says that that terminates a visitation right for anybody to visit. I mean, that's a medical thing.
Correct.
It has to do with people that want to visit somebody.
Yeah, that's just disclosure of medical information to people who's not authorized, right?
Yeah.
Right. That's what HIPAA is about. But actually, the U.S. Supreme Court, in the case of Troxel v. Granville, in the year 2000, said that the the question of visitation is not a question where a judge or a state should be telling who can visit who. I mean, we're talking about a fundamental First Amendment right of association that these courts and these guardians seem to think they're the ones that get to make the decision, when in fact the decision that is to be made is that of the ward. What decision would the ward make? Not what decision the guardian wants to make.
Correct.
It's what decision would the ward make. And we see this a lot with these guardians. Well, I'm guardian and I get to make all the decisions. Well, no, you don't. You know, you're limited to enforcing and preserving and protecting the rights and wishes of the ward, not your own whimsical idea of what you think your office entitles you to do.
Exactly. I mean, it's almost like they're just exceeding their authority. Like you say, they're there to represent the wishes of the ward. That's what it comes down to. What would I want to do if I were able to communicate or tell you what I wanted to do?
Correct. And you know something, Rusty? In the case of Sara and Gary Harvey, they had an advance directive. They're called marriage vows. They said before God and before the state of New York, who licensed their union, that they would love, honor, and obey each other for good times and bad, in sickness and health, until death do them part. And that is a directive licensed by the state. And how dare the state come along and say, well, we gave you a contract and we gave you a license, but you know what, we don't recognize it. And today we're going to make a different decision. No, it doesn't work that way, Rusty.
Oh.
They cannot have their cake and eat it too.
Well,
sadly, Rusty,
Holly,
this is bad stuff. I'll stop.
That's all right. Holly, we do appreciate the call tonight.
Thank you, Holly.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Yes, Holly.
Is there anything else you want to add, or? Me,
Holly?
Yes, Holly.
Okay.
Sorry, it gets confusing a little with multiple people on the line.
Is instead of approaching this from what is, it's a legislative problem, and the quote, end quote, we the people, we create the legislation through state and local government. So instead of butting heads with current standing legislation, why not approach it from creating new laws that circumvent this, if indeed these laws that are in effect are, robbing people of their rights. I mean, it moves directly into something that would be unconstitutional, and if you had the legislation behind you, you could get what you want resolved. Correct.
There's some merit to that, secret squirrel, but let me put this to thought, okay? Lawyers run the legislative process, and to write a piece of legislation that puts them out of business is not likely going to happen.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all about self-preservation.
Absolutely right.
But here's the deal.
I can show you in Indiana law where they have admitted that the probate guardianship statutes are less than workmanlike, and yet they'll do nothing about it. I can show you in Indiana law where my years of litigation has resulted in 4 amendments of the statute to make legal what I complained about being illegal. Now, what some people don't understand, legislators do not write law. They write code. Courts make law. A piece of legislation is only presumed law until a judge has determined whether or not it's constitutionally sound or not.
Courts interpret law, all right? But it is individuals that make up the politic of states and the politic of the national government. That's
I understand what you're saying, but a court makes law.
Courts interpret law.
Courts make law. Read Madison v. Marbury back in the 1800s when the dispute was who makes law. And courts honestly do, in fact, make law. You're right, they interpret statute, they interpret code, but what the court says becomes law. And you can read your statute, and it'll say one thing, and you can read your case law, and it will say something completely different.
Right,
but the
case
law is carry the day.
Case law is what is used in cases that are being tried right now, and it's just saying this is our precedent. But there are as well opportunities to overturn decisions by a court by revisiting it and actually saying this is incorrect, and there was a mistake made.
This is my opinion. This is merely my opinion, okay, Secret Squirrel. But there's no incentive for legislation to be enacted unless a court case imposes liability. Then the legislature will act. Until there's some exposure to liability, they're not going to write a new law. Period.
Okay. Well that's where your media...
They will not fix what is not broken.
And that's where your media...
If a court case imposes liability upon them, they will rewrite the law. And this is a constant game, back and forth. I have often said that the court system is a clearinghouse for the legislature. The court system determines that there's going to be some liability. The legislature scrambles to change the statute. That seems to me, in my 20-some years of studying this, how it seems to work. Because both sides of this table are driven by lawyers.
I agree with your points. But the thing I was pointing out was your media outlets, be they print or broadcast media, will definitely bring attention to discrepancies in the system. But it is us, the people that are either going to elect the legislative bodies and or become the legislative bodies, as in politicians. We're the ones that can actually remold this problem into something that has a solution to it. And it's by getting people involved in politics at a local level. This is local stuff.
I agree with you. I agree with you. But you know what else I think, Secret Squirrel? I think there's too much emphasis paid on the legislative side of the governmental three-tiered system. Not enough emphasis placed on the judiciary. Nobody knows who their judges are that are being elected.
But
nobody pays any attention to who they are.
One of the problems that a possible corrupt judicial individual could get away with is because there are legislation has to be created in a way where there is very little room for quote-unquote interpretation because the light is red and you need to stop. Right?
Well, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right there. But you know, here we go. Back to
was it red?
Running both sides of the game.
Yeah.
They're dealing the cards and collecting the money.
Yeah.
They're on both sides of the game, and you know there's some theory that professes that our country was never supposed to have lawyers to begin with. You know.
Well,
it's probably one of the biggest problems in our country is it's all run by lawyers.
Secret
Unless
Squirrel.
you can think like a lawyer and talk like a lawyer, you can't hardly survive in this country.
Secret Squirrel, do you know anyone there in your area that's ever had these types of issues where they've faced this guardianship issue?
I personally have, and I had nobody to rely on. It was like, oh, I'm going down. So
right.
I put that in the chat room about if you're a veteran and you go to a veterans hospital, if they don't resolve your problem in X number of days, they just commit you to the state. They send an order, and if it goes to a judge and pops up on his desk, he stamps it, and you're gone.
Right.
And your opportunity of getting out of there alone is very remote.
You're right. You're absolutely right. You know, guardianship only terminates on one thing, Rusty: the death of the ward.
Yeah.
They don't calculate that you will ever be restored of your competency. Now, here's an interesting point. If you're a criminal defendant who's found not guilty by reason of insanity or who has been found incompetent to stand trial, there's a process for you to be judicially restored of your legal capacity. But from the civil side of the docket, where you're just hustled into an institution and written off under guardianship, there's no process that guarantees you that you will ever be restored of your competency. You will live the rest of your life as an incompetent, village idiot.
Yeah, I would have become a ward of the state.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're dead in law, but alive in fact.
And they do that with U.S. veterans all the time. That's not
the veterans community is probably the most vulnerable. I would venture to say, of the homeless population in this country, a goodly percent of them are all in the same boat, and they don't belong there. They do not belong there because the system has failed them and deprived them of equal protection of the law, and deprived them of a fair, equal, and meaningful access to the services and benefits of the court system and of the government benefit programs that are available to them. It's a systemic discrimination, start to finish.
Well, Secret Squirrel, I do appreciate the call tonight. Thanks for joining Tim and Sara here on the Skype line.
Oh, yeah. All right. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Talk to you later, Rusty.
And Tim, we had one more call that was trying to get in. Would you be able to stay on for one more call?
Sure, be glad to, Rusty.
I think Standing Stones, he's a regular viewer, watches from the Massachusetts area. I think he may call in here and have some comments on this topic.
Okay. Great.
Hello, you're on with Rusty, Tim, and Sara.
Hello.
How you doing this evening?
Hello.
Is this Standing
Hello.
Stones?
I'm good. Hello.
Who's calling, please?
All right. Can you put your shoe on your head?
Yeah, we get those occasionally. Let's see if this one is Standing Stones. Apparently not. Sean, are you calling in tonight? Would you like to call in and talk to Tim a little bit and Sara? I think he was trying to call earlier, but sometimes on a live show, Tim, you never know what's going to happen, and people like to call you and not really stay pertinent to the topic.
I understand. I've been on a few of these. No problem.
Tim, I wanted to ask you too. Do you know if did the healthcare law, the new healthcare law, did it address any of these issues? I read it, but I don't remember seeing this issue in it at all.
You know, interesting enough, Rusty, the very first amendment to the TARP bill was parity for mental health insurance.
Oh, really?
You know, they want everybody and their brother in this equation, Rusty. You know, it's their way of sifting through the population and determining who's going to get to play in the game and who's not going to get to play in the game. Honestly, it is. You know, our entire system of government is really premised on guardianship, Rusty. We have two authorities in our government. That's the police powers of the government and the parens parentis powers. And the parens parentis powers of the government says that every citizen is a child of the king. And under the parens parentis powers, this paternalism, you know, this it takes a village kind of thing that the Clintons were so big on. Everybody needs the government to help them get through life. That's where we're headed. They want everybody and their brother under this dependency of the government, whether it's health care, whether it's food stamps, whether it's a housing allowance or whatever, you know.
Okay.
So the government's, their agenda is to push this thing, really is. We don't promote individuality anymore, Rusty. We don't promote upward mobility.
And Sean, are you with us now?
No, this would be Diane.
Okay.
Hi, Tim. Hi, Sara.
And
hi,
who is
Diane.
this?
This is
Hello,
Diane.
Tim,
Where are you
Sara.
calling from?
California.
Diane from California. Okay.
Diane. Hi, Diane.
Hi, Tim. How are you?
I'm fine,
I see
Diane.
you're not in the
busy
shed.
and busy, though. You know me.
Hey, you know what? I just wanted to call you up, Rusty, and give my little input. I actually heard about Sara's story, and we became friends via Facebook, and I flew back there for a couple of weeks just to see what little bit that I could do. And, you know, during the course that I was there, it was just, it's absolutely so egregious
what they have done to this lady. And I don't know how many times that I would sit there going through the box, the paperwork, trying to find anything and everything that we could to help make this case. And I ended up compiling a file folder that had to have been 2 to 3 inches thick of nothing but letters that she has written throughout the last 4 or 5 years to her senators, to her congressmen, to her congresswomen. And it was just absolutely amazing how every single one of them, which she solicited for help, that they completely, unequivocally shut down and told her, we cannot help you. You need to get an attorney. And I'm looking at one, actually, that I have right now, and it's from Congressman Cole's office. And this one, to me, is the most outrageous because his secretary, or one of the gals in the office, she literally faxed this complaint that Sara submitted to their office, and she literally faxed it back to Gary's court-appointed guardian and said, here's Mrs. Harvey's letters. Thanks for the information. This is what kind of system we're dealing with.
So let me back up a minute. You're saying that the representative's office actually forwarded her letter on to the guardian?
That's
yeah,
right.
they forwarded her letter instead of doing anything with it. I've got the fax cover letter where they faxed it right over to the Gould in Chemung County, and with their notation on, basically here's Mrs. Harvey's letters. You wouldn't believe this stuff. I know there's a lot that I can't talk about right now, but the things that we found and the level of stupidity and the arrogance that these people displayed by articulating this stuff and to be so stupid to write some of the things down that they did and some of their documentation. So, we had times when we cried, but, we also had to laugh a lot, too, because of the stupidity and the arrogance of which these individuals displayed, because they really thought that they had shut Sara down. They, however it transpired, she was turned on to. She had very bad representation. We have our speculations about how that went down. She was absolutely financially drained by that improper, representation. No one did anything remotely, even closely, the right thing for her. And they actually really thought they were going to shut her down and she would go away. Hence her name that she said in the beginning, Choo Choo, because she's literally the little thing that could. And they didn't count on her. They just thought that after a little bit of time she would either stay in her corner or go away. And she never did. She kept fighting back and fighting back. And, there was, there was a lot of times she didn't have anything to fight with. But you know what? It didn't stop her. And that's why, I'm just so passionate about this case with Sara, because she's I've read the things that they've written about her. I've seen the retaliation. I've seen the absolute unequivocal connections where they were tying in her visitation or suspending or withholding or whatever that they were trying to do. They were tying that in, with the complaints that she was submitting. It's very obvious what they were doing to this lady. And, we cannot just sit back and allow this to happen. Because literally, this can happen to anyone at any given time. And one of the things that I don't think that Sara or Tim really expounded too much on was how much they looted everything that Gary had. All of his assets, his stocks, his bonds, his retirement, everything completely wiped out.
That's true. That is true, Diane. They looted this man for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And what they really did is they looted the marital estate.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. And
the husband would want nothing more than to leave his estate to his wife. And the county came in and literally looted it in a matter of how long, Diane? 10 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
It was, I don't remember exactly, but it was in a very relatively short period of time.
Right.
And they wasted no time in liquidating. And I don't know, are we allowed to talk about that, Tim, about the possibility of the Medicaid fraud as far as the liquidation and to get them down to...
I don't think there's any question that it's fraught with Medicaid fraud. I don't think
you don't think
all
there's
these cases seem to be fraught with Medicaid fraud. You know, steal all the money, put somebody on Medicaid, let the taxpayer pick up the bill, while everybody else goes to the country club and sips on their credit.
And then they have to get his net value and his assets down to a certain resource minimal level. And to do that, they were transferring assets out of his name, liquidating assets, which we've got a whole theory that behind a lot of stuff that went on there too. And then money was being applied in, you know, certain trust funds or this and that. And Sara was never given an accounting, although she was required to have private insurance on him. She was never given an accounting what VA was paying for versus what Medicaid was paying for, what her private insurance was paying for. Nobody would tell her anything because they'd say, "Oh,
if she wouldn't insure him, they wouldn't let her visit him."
They what, Tim?
If Sara would not insure her husband, they would not let her visit him.
It's just, you know, it's absolutely, the story is so crazy that I'm almost embarrassed talking about it because people absolutely, they think that you're embellishing it because it's so crazy. You know, the first thing out of everyone's mouth is, oh, there's got to be more to this story. And it's, I mean, I've seen it with my own eyes. You know, I don't know if I would have actually really believed it had I not actually seen everything that I did. And I actually was one of the few who did get to go in and visit with Gary while I was there.
Oh,
but
you did get a visit with Gary?
Yeah, I did. And the we had to call. We had to ask for. We had to give her a heads up. This would be the Gould, and the day that we called her, she had a little chagrin because she wanted a heads up. We're like, well, this is your heads up, and she said, well, maybe Monday. And I asked her, is this too inconvenient for you? And she said, no, not for me. It's inconvenient for the hospital. Those were her words. Absolutely against patients' rights to be able to deny a visitor a visitation based on staff convenience or pleasure. Just crazy all the way down the line. So a few days later, I went back, and I was visiting with him, and she had her little guard there that's going to watch her. And I had been there for an hour. The nurses had been in and out of the room. They had seen me, and it wasn't until after I stood up and I was talking to the guard that they didn't know what the guard was saying to me, and they didn't like that. So they came in and they tried to make me leave. And I said, I'm sorry. I said, I'm not leaving. Sara, are you trying to talk?
Yeah, I'm here. Bye.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Diane.
Hi, sweetie. You're kind of breaking up here, but just let me finish my story real quick. And when I told them that I wasn't leaving, which I didn't, and there was no way that they were going to kick me out, and one of the nurses literally took out her cell phone and snapped my picture. Now, mind you, Sarah's not even allowed to take a picture of her own husband, but they stood there and took my picture with their cell phone.
They wanted to document it. They wanted to document it.
It's just creepy. That's absolutely creepy. It doesn't get any creepier than that.
You know, and I know we've talked about the legislative part of it, and they give you the response that it's pending litigation or whatever, and they can't get involved. But I really think with this GAO report that you might have a little traction here. I mean,
well, it's definitely helped to elicit, much needed attention to it.
I mean, you've got senators. You've got a senator from New York there. You've got Kristen Gillibrand, who is representing the state of New York, who's on this committee, this special committee on aging, who is now in possession, hopefully, of this report and sees that it's a big issue in this country.
It needs all the support that it can get. Absolutely, and I wanted to thank you for having, this broadcast on. It only takes one, just one person at times to make the changes. And so we're hoping that somehow that we can reach that one. And so if we have any awesome attorneys out there that are listening, please call in. We need you.
There you go. A plea for some legal expertise out there if you're in the audience. Diane, I appreciate you calling in tonight. Thanks for sharing your aspect on this story.
Thank you, Diane.
Okay, you're welcome, Choo-Choo.
You guys have a good evening.
All right, you
Bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye.
Politics, faith, and love. You're watching Big 3 News, where we cover the stories that matter the most.